Welcome, everyone. It is December 15th in the morning where I am. I've got a couple of gents here with me from Founders Metals. If you follow along with Founders, probably Colin is a pretty familiar face to you. New to the show, though, we met in person, but this is his unfortunate distinction of being his first time on JRI, so my condolences. But we got Pascal Voegeli, who serves a pretty critical role with Founders, and just thought, just starting to try to get maybe more people from the team, not just kind of Colin's mug every single time, right? So yeah, I know, right? Sorry, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Colin,
fine.
your yesterday's news now, right? But no, so yeah, welcome guys, welcome Pascal, especially first time on. Maybe why don't we, before I want to dive into recent news release, another brand new discovery. It's getting kind of boring, not actually. It's super exciting, obviously, but another new discovery we want to chew on, and it's year end, and so some natural sort of year in review and maybe year in preview sort of chats here. But Pascal, maybe let's just focus on you if you don't mind for the time being. We'll get you into the game here first. Maybe do you want to provide just some background on yourself? What were you doing prior to joining the Founders team? Maybe, some events that transpired that led up to your joining the crew?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Pascal Voegeli. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Founders Metals. I got my undergrad and master's degree at the University of Alberta, and then worked for several years across various jurisdictions in the Americas. And then I met Colin 4 or 5 years ago, and we were kind of kicking the can and looking at different things. And then about, I think, August 2022, we started thinking about projects in West Africa and just thinking kind of, broad conceptual style ideas. And then eventually we kind of started wandering over to the idea of the Ghana Shield. And then we just kind of did a 30,000 foot overview of all the deposits. And we just kind of realized that it has all the characteristics of what could be the next major jurisdiction and emerging district. There seemed to be, even just aerially, you could see that there's a huge cluster of work and deposits in a small geographic region, which just, increases the odds. And then we came across the first deck of Antino in August 2022. I did a review, put the data together, and sent it to Colin and said, we got to look at this. And 5 weeks later, we were in the hot jungle, walking around looking at rocks. So, yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool, eh? Yeah, so you guys knew each other before, and this was, you kind of knew you wanted to work together, and then starting conceptually, awesome. So maybe what is your formal title? I guess that's an easy question. I mean, that's an obvious one, but maybe more kind of unofficially or more qualitatively, how has your role sort of evolved over time? And, what sort of role or niche do you feel that you kind of fill, or strengths you bring that are important to this story?
Sure. Yeah. So, as people know, we kind of, are running an exploration program, but we also run a drilling program. So kind of from the get-go, there's a whole bunch of things you have to learn that nobody can really teach us. So we kind of hit the ground running. So I think from the get-go, we had about 5 months before the rigs arrived. So did a whole bunch of mapping initially, and a whole bunch of sampling and just superficial work to kind of do the ground prep work for what the first drill program would look like. And we were thinking 3,000 to 5,000 meters. So just kind of seeing what the priority is there, and what kind of gives us the best run to start with. But then, as a project develops and grows, I mean, at the end of the day, the most critical ingredient ends up being people. So I think, myself, also with the leadership of Colin, we kind of started making the stream team little by little. And then in that summer, right as we began drilling, Vinci came on, and he brought a level of detail that I think really made it all fit together. And I mean, these are the guys that get the credit, but there's a whole plethora of people that every day are just adding a tremendous amount of value and making the whole thing run. Because I mean, the area, it's interesting, it's not just, you're not just in the Yukon tundra, like you're in a place where there's a whole bunch of different interesting communities and a mosaic of different kinds of people. And we found a way to work and interact with all of them to our success. In the beginning, we didn't have any machinery. We didn't really have any real capacity on the ground. So that had to be built by relationships with people, So I think that was a big part of my role, beyond putting together the geology and starting to think about how we bring this thing to scale. It's also just putting together all the other pieces that make the dream work. So I think, originally it was very geology, operational, as organizing planes. Now I'm at the point where, we have a full team to do all that and focus more on the big picture. But
Relationship piece is still a big part of what you do. I mean, the language side of things, the communication bit, it's been really important. And I mean, we've had a lot of success that's come out of both being able to interact with the small scale miner guys that are on the ground, but also just, you hear about things from guys that are working, and you go check out the white rock that they talk about on a Sunday, and it turns into something interesting. So,
And I think, we sometimes, you can visibly see we're quite young, but I think that the beginner's mindset was actually really helpful in a lot of ways, because we didn't have a rigid way of thinking about how we would build it. And then after a while, I think all those various aspects has just kind of helped us bring it to scale, and ultimately manifest itself as great new discoveries. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, that was from my time down there. I took you to be you're almost kind of the scout team. That was, I always felt you had that. Even though you have a technical background, and like you say, you were kind of key in the early days. That you had sort of that cultural scout team aspect where part of it, and maybe Colin, I'll ask you to sing his praises a bit, because he's avoiding that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you're a critical part of that sort of. I think I just used the word qualitative again, but that was that just every new village, you're part of that. I mean, your people skills and your language abilities are pretty important down there. Is that a fair statement, Colin? I won't make Pascal talking about himself so much. So
no, that is a fair statement. I mean, last year, the whole kind of first 12 months of things, I mean, it was effectively Pascal and I before things were big enough, but also that we could actually bring in some new good people to the team and help out so it could continue to grow. But we were just full tilt, and Pascal was down here, I don't know, 80% of his time, and I don't know how much of that was spent in an airport just getting back and forth, but a lot. So, I mean, it was a lot of really hard work, and Pascal did a great job and continues to do so. It's been very good.
I was thinking before, that I was a couple of years back, I was complaining to my long-suffering wife that I had to travel an hour for a Christmas party, and you guys in some intercontinental travel for your local Christmas party there, eh? And I just, Pascal, before we move on, I thought that the point you made, and it's one thing that I always, one of my big takeaways from down there and continuing to kind of interact with you guys, it's a young, hungry team, and I totally agree, right? You guys are technically proficient, but success risks dulling the blade, so to speak, right? And you guys, there's that youthful hunger, and like you said, that flexibility, and maybe that willingness to look or think in ways that maybe more experienced, kind of decades of experience wouldn't, just trending away from. So no, fair point. Why don't let's just kind of move on to the next question here so we don't kind of delve too deeply. Maybe let's turn this, Pascal, back to you, and maybe let's switch the gears more to kind of your relationship with Antino. When did you kind of realize, I mean, you guys are, you have a tiger by the tail here, a bull by the horn sort of thing. When did you realize that you were apparently sort of very quickly building something that was going to be special?
Sure. I mean, I think in my mind, chronologically, there's kind of three paradigm shifts or moments in time that I can put my finger on. Before we even started drilling, we obviously did all the review of the historic drilling. It's 32,000 meters. Only about 9 or 10,000 of that was preserved, but right away, we noticed there's actually some really important controls and aspects of the deposit that hadn't really been put conceptually into an exploration plan. So I think right away we kind of realized that there's an opportunity to have a rethink about what the model looks like. We knew there was a gap, but we didn't know what that gap quite was. But that was an opportunity in its own right. So that was my first kind of like, okay, well, this is interesting. And obviously the historical data, some big numbers, massive numbers, phenomenal grade, good continuity. And then of course we had the benefit of all the small scale work. So we could build a pretty robust, just official map and model, which I think, so those kind of two factors was, in the very beginning where I thought like, wow, there's a huge amount of potential here. And then I think my next kind of aha moment was we initially did the work on the Froyo structure, and then as soon as we started noticing some of the really important controls, and B, noticing all these parallel things. At first it was 1, and then it was 2, and then it was 3. First it was 500 meters, then it was a kilometer. And that was like, okay, like this has gone from theory to reality. And I think that, a lot of the early drilling and even most of half the drilling this year was allocated to Froyo, but that was the best possible laboratory for us to refine and define what are the key characteristics of these deposits. And then we kind of ironed out the structural complexity, which again is another opportunity because you have so many mineralization events that you just get more opportunities. So I think that was a good kind of laboratory for it. And I guess the most recent, I think kind of cracking the code, if you will, we just took that and were able to reproduce it again and again and again. So, and I think Da Vinci now highlights that, as well as some new things that we're thinking about. So we now kind of have the formula, and with that formula, we have like 10 to 15 other sites within the Antino concessions that kind of in the ranking, if you kind of stack the parameters of data, kind of fit that bill. So, I mean, even if a quarter of those work out, we're tier 1.
Even more too.
Even 2, yeah. Yeah. So
just advancing the ones we have. It's exciting because I mean that's a big focus next year is the exploration side of it, and we've got 4 drill rigs turning, and the dollars in the bank to cover the meters, so we get to go test all those things. And
good place to be. Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, you guys, you've mastered this model, and you're going to reproduce those results and apply that model elsewhere to those targets. So I mean, it's funny to think that you're still at a potential inflection point considering the run you guys are on, but I think that that's still a valid point, right? I mean, the market's still trying to figure out or suss out just exactly how to value you guys. We're approaching a $500 million, so obviously they just think it's pretty nice, but maybe with that in mind, and not to, this one, don't lose track of this, Pascal, this one more for you, and then I'll turn it over to Colin. But like I say, at a 400 million market cap or whatever it is currently, maybe there's obviously a lot of love that's being found, but maybe is there a part to this story, Pascal, that you yourself think that maybe deserves more attention, or maybe you think that the market still hasn't kind of fully clicked to yet, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's difficult to communicate this because there's so many different areas and targets and things. But I think what the market hasn't quite got yet is that there's many deposits here. And even just the scale of superficial work and some of the things that, we realize are attractive. I mean, I think there's a lot more Da Vinci's or famous artists to be had out there, and I think that's the real thing. And it's almost hard to communicate because it's kind of a dizzying array of things. But that is I think what's important. And initially, I think something in this release that's highlighted is initially it was the 8-kilometer kind of gold trend, and now with Da Vinci work southeast of there and all this river mapping work that we've done, it's like, okay, well, these are like regional scale structures coming off the central granite shear zone. Just south of us. So we have this primary, stage structure, and we have all these secondary and tertiary things. And Antino's just a perfect kind of trap for all these things. And even though there's been a lot of historical exploration, like more than half the property has 0 exploration. So with what we've done is like, oh, okay, there's a lot around there, but there's a whole other 50% that is entirely virgin. And in that 50% where we've actually now had the capacity to work out, we're finding
already
finding all sorts of things. So I think that's the message that puts it out there, and I think that's what people should be really thinking about. I think right now, as Colin alluded to, the way I conceptualize this next kind of year is it's not how big is Froyo. The question is how many Froyos are there. And my thought is quite a few. Yeah.
I mean, it takes mastery and expertise and knowledge and chutzpah to make it happen. But I mean, it's just littered with, like you say, potential future deposits, right? That the potential, is still blue sky. And that's like another thing that I keep saying to people that will listen to me about founders is, so many stories. You start with these wide probability bands, and then through knowledge and data, they start to narrow, blue, maybe the bottom up and the top down, but I still feel like that top probability band, that blue sky, is still intact fully from what it could have been. I mean, you might even argue that it's even higher than it was a year and a half ago in terms of potential, right? So it's exciting. Yeah, who doesn't love a good discovery story, right? But why don't we, thank you, Pascal. Let's pass it over to Colin here for a second and kind of maybe get into the nuts and bolts of, I'll just click through here to to this most recent news release, right? I mean, so here we are, December 11th. I mean, Colin, I'm going to step on your toes a little bit here because my question for you is to just walk us through this. But I mean, you had a 3-hole program planned. Here's a release of 5 holes, so that already tells you something, right? 12 holes total, so we still have more coming. I mean, I'll invite people to look at the parts that I've highlighted in terms of mineralization. And before I hand it over to Colin, kind of the quip I made, before we went live here was, 15 meters of 1.2 grams, that 004. That would be, a very successful first hole of mineralization in a new target. A lot of successful projects, that's where they start. Here we have 5 holes, and that's the worst of them, right? So yeah, woe was you. What a problem to have, right? But I mean, do you just, I mean, what do you want to say about this, right? What can you let us know about Da Vinci, maybe how it came to pass, when did it first start getting attention? And I'll leave it there for now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, well, there's a magnetics anomaly down there, and from some of the early regional, geophysics or just imagery work. Pascal and I've always been kind of interested in it. There's a similar signature around that area to, what we see at Voegeli, what we see at Upper Antino, what we see at Lower Antino. But beyond that, once we got the new LiDAR data, when did we fly that? August timeframe, we actually got the data back. You could see that there was a bit of a historic working, but then that was also around the same time that our surficial teams were really ramping up, and they got some time down there, some early mapping, some channel work. I think we had 9 meters of 3.5 grams or something like that come back in a channel, and that was pretty exciting. And there was obviously a bit of scale to it, like you see in the pictures in this press release. Like it's a pretty big area, and there's some decent sized structures coming through there when you look at the LiDAR and all of that. So getting a drill down there seemed like a no-brainer. And we had the drill at Voegeli, wasn't too far away. So yeah, our plan was to sneak a drill down there and then head back and, continue on with the now 7,500 meter kind of phase 2 drill plan at Voegeli. We did that. I think hole 1, we already knew it probably wasn't going to make it back. We were pretty excited just with the right out of the gate, the very early results from that. And then each hole after that, consistently seeing the same thing. And being able to take this all the way down to 200 meters vertical, just in the first 5 holes, all with significant intercepts. You don't get a 200 meter vertical zone without having some strike extent that goes along with that. So, we're happy with what we see. I mean, we were able to, with drilling, define 100 meters of strike. We see similar mineralization in 200, 250 meters of strike in the drilling we've done. I think there's real opportunity here. And I mean, that's how it really evolved. And so 3 holes became a plan for 12, 9 finished for this year. And, we'll be right back here as soon as we can next year with our 4th rig, which is now running full tilt. Actually had a pretty good week. Yeah. It'll be back at Voegeli, continuing that work.
So maybe a follow-up. Was this a matter of it sounds like, and tell me if I misinterpreted, but not necessarily that Da Vinci kind of climbed the priority list, but it finally just a rig was freed up for you to get to that step on your priority list. Is that kind of fair, or?
No, I think it was more we had quite a bit of success, and Pascal was really excited about getting down there and kind of said, why not? I mean, we're getting close to the end of the year. Things have been going really well, and why not give one of these a try? I mean, we're out here to explore, and that's the fun part of this job too, is finding new things. And it felt like we maybe had found something, but you really care once you've got a drill hole into it and know. And so that was really the motivation. So it was meant to just be like, okay, let's just pop a rig down there and test it. And it really worked out. I mean, obviously there's a reason he was excited. We were all excited, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, good find, eh? So maybe so you kind of referenced this, and maybe I'll circle back to it, and this will serve as a launch pad for the next question I have for you. But right now, as of this news release, and you verbally said, visuals are different, but 100 meters of confirmed strike, 180 meters of vertical depth, visually confirmed to 200 meters, I believe, is the way it goes. And I think you said right now, just based on visuals, based on kind of an infer understanding, 250 meter in strike length. Is that kind of what you said? And width as well?
Yeah. Because we've got there's some work at surface as well. And it kind of all comes together to give us about that right now.
And so, I mean, again, and just to clarify, then width too, is there, I don't have the cross section. I neglected that one. Maybe I'll throw that in here for people that are listening to the recording, but what's your anticipated width right now, the mineralized zone?
Well, right now we see 2, potentially 3 zones. We think there's a third zone, a bit further off to the east. But we need a bit more drilling, I think, to really nail that one down. But the 2 main shears, I mean, it's basically we don't have enough information, I'd say, to give a full true width, but I think we're probably in this 60 in the shallowest or the most oblique hole % range, but things look pretty vertical, so I suspect we're in the 85+% range on the other holes. I think that's probably fair.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, true widths are pretty substantial overall. I mean, when you're dealing with things that are 40, 60 meters wide, and even in the true width fashion, you're still well north of 20 on all of those. It's easier to hit something 20 meters wide. That's more or less straight up and down. You could drill from both sides, and that's what we've been doing.
Well, yeah, I guess I'll say congratulations to Pascal. You got your way in. You got a little Da Vinci on your belt now. That's good.
Yeah.
Why don't we though? This is maybe I'll pass this back to you, Pascal. Like I said, kind of the question I had, and I thought it maybe works well off that, is that I brought it up here. I mean, you have a nice little overview in this last press release of your sort of, I mean, correct me if this is an incorrect way to describe it, but sort of a kind of a discovery checklist, right? And so I do want to do, like I said, a kind of an Antino project geology interview, but I don't want to make that the focus today. I think it would stretch on for too much. So maybe the question I do have, without kind of getting into the geo talk, how high confidence is your above ground look at these targets? I mean, so I guess what I mean by that is, are there risks of misidentification or false positives? And if so, do you have a way to account for those? Or is this more a matter of knowing with a pretty high degree of certainty about where the structure is, and then you just have to drill it out and see if that particular fluid alteration was gold or not, was mineralized with gold? Which one are you at, think, Pascal?
I mean, I think there's never any certainty, of course.
There are rocks at the end of the day,
yeah. But no, I mean, I think it's a combination of those things, and we can look at it and be pretty confident, and we kind of have stacked data sets. I mean, first thing, my personal favorite data set is the LiDAR, and we now property wide, and we also have this oriented core. So we have a lot of the LiDAR features at surface. We can now validate at depth, and really have a pretty deep understanding of the fabric. So that gives us confidence when we move to different areas. So I think that's a pretty good confirmation that we generally do. So I mean, yeah, but these characteristics, they seem to be repeating again and again and again. We do have some different hosts, of course. We have the kind of tonalitic units, and then these kind of, sheared higher grade things. But those 2 bins tend to overlap pretty consistently. We do have some local variability in different areas, but big scale, it does appear to be consistent. I think just finding the right trap, and there's different kinds of traps here. And, we kind of have our exploration strategy is just kind of ranked. So stacked data sets. So LiDAR, we have the regional mag. With chargeability, we've, I think, executed really well on as well. Oriented core data, and of course, a lot of superficial work. So when we have all those things, we'll do a really quick kind of superficial validation auger grid over top. If it lights up, that's another check. And then that's just kind of how we add the weighting as to what we think our probability is, and ultimately what should be a priority.
Yeah. Awesome. And I actually do want to get into what you see on the LiDAR and the mag, but we'll just, like I say, maybe I'll make Colin bring you back on in a couple of months so we can do
sure,
it then.
yeah, gladly, yeah.
Yeah, no, but no, like I say, we're kind of approaching the half hour here, so we'll try to keep it short and sweet for people. So yeah, no, I think that's this idea here is that, and we kind of reference it. I mean, you have a working model. So far, it's been extremely effective in producing new targets that are then, proven to actually hold gold. Do you have, and I know this is a really sort of, I mean, you can massage data however you want, right? Do you have maybe an open one? Is there a hit rate percentage you can give me that maybe you have that you kind of talk to people about, or?
We have a pretty high.
Yeah.
As far as like anomalous gold and drill core, yeah.
75.
Yeah, I mean north of 75.
Yeah.
It's not bad, I guess. Okay, yeah. Well done. Yeah, well done, guys.
Say
Being
well
sarcastic
north.
always.
Yeah.
It's probably.
Yeah, geez, eh? Well, why don't we? I'll get back to a map here because I think this is where we'll end this conversation here. So this is one where I got to say again, me just kind of speaking for myself. It's been fun watching over the last year this map, and this is what you alluded to yourself, Pascal. Just kind of slowly getting filled in with more and more targets, right? I mean, it started out with just a couple, right? I think it was. Tell me if I'm wrong, but the first three were just Upper, Lower, and Boise. Suddenly they've got friends all along the way, right? Sure. I mean, you got this huge trend now that's being that you're kind of confident enough to put on your map, and some that that are new here. So maybe I do want to talk about Lawa because I think there's a lot of chatter and excitement on that one, and I'm going to talk about that gold trend maybe extending beyond Da Vinci even. But maybe let's just talk about just Parbo and Maria Geralda first. I mean, can you just say what's terms of what stage are they at? When might we see drilling there? Is this virgin land? Or is it still kind of the free dig stuff, or is there artisanal mine working that's pointing the way there for you? Or maybe how about Colin? Those
are really earlies. Yeah, I mean, well, so we really like Parbo because it fits the same model as Boise, Upper Antino, Lower Antino. You have a fantastic auger anomaly. There's grades that are up to 40 plus grams per ton in auger and channel sampling work that was done historically. And that stuff's worked out in Lower Antino, Boise, and Upper Antino. So, we're keen to get out there. There's roads to it. It's accessible. There's been not very much mining, done there at all. So as far as, preserved saprolite, it's still there. So that one's great. Maria Geralda, very little work. You've been to the shear.
I have, yeah.
And seen it. There's some cluster of historic auger samples that are, some pretty consistent high grade for some guys from quite a while ago now that were doing a little bit of mining. But that still remains something to get to. But, higher up on the list than something, further afield. And a big part of that is because there is some work that we can, follow up on, but there's also accessibility. We're not cutting roads or, doing anything like that. We can actually get people there. So yeah, along strike, there's a lot of opportunity. There's still some stuff over to the west as well that we haven't put a box around yet. It used to have a box, I think, in some really old maps.
Yeah.
But we've been adding boxes as we get more confident. And then there's the very big Lawa box, which Vincent especially is very excited about, and we are as well. But he has since, I think, it was you and he that were there to see it the first time. Yeah, he's very keen. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, why don't we? I'll use that as a launch pad, Pascal. Sorry, but Pascal, I'll ask you about Lawa. What was your thought there?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was just gonna kind of build on what Colin was saying. I mean, I think there's a few points there that I think we should focus on a little bit. I think from where you began, there's this cluster at the top there, but everything past there, most of these places have complete oxide intact, which I think will be really important down the future. And I think right now, as you zoom out and you see more and more boxes kind of populating the screen, we'll have more and more parallel trends moving as well along with that fabric. So once we can put those dots together, I suspect it's preliminary in early days, but I suspect that beyond more boxes, we'll have more full property scale trends. And we have quite a lot of first order indications of that being the case. So, I mean, we have all these areas where we're doing some preliminary work and superficial work and starting to put the dots together. This year was actually quite a dry year. So we were able to do a really great map of the river, which that data set is going to ultimately be very key. And Vincent and a bunch of our technical staff are down there putting that together. So I think that's the bottom of the line. But a lot of these things are already at superficial scale, several kilometers. And again, previously underexplored. So I think going all the way back to blue sky, I mean, that's it right there.
Yeah,
for me.
We don't have it on the map here, but currently the two Lawa structures, which really two main ones that we identified, and the northern one we see 8 kilometers there, basically from the river all the way up through, cutting to the northwest in that same exact right, and then just to the southwest of that is the second structure. And that one we got about 5 kilometers to find from the river through to the work that we've done on the surface so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys start figuring out the free dig and start getting there before the local miners have, and you still have that free dig, and I mean, the economics of that are
at this point there's no concern of that, like of it disappearing between now and some point in the future that's going to matter to us. We have quite a lot of control on the property, and the understanding with our partners in country, or the miners on the ground. Like if we're exploring somewhere, the stuff really doesn't get mined and disappear just because we've started doing work in an area. So anywhere that hasn't seen mining historically, like that's ours. It's we're not worried about it disappearing.
No, fair. And that wasn't, I understand why that wasn't specifically what I meant by that. But that's still a point well made that there is agreements there that you all of a sudden you're not going to be the scouting party for the locals to come mine that out.
No. If anything, it's actually kind of turned out to be the other way, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. But I mean, for me, it just is kind of another example of that level of understanding that has grown now, where the quote unquote easy part is just underneath current workings. Now you're a step ahead of that game, and you're into the fresh stuff, right? And you're finding things that are previously undiscovered. Yeah, so it's totally undiscovered, I guess, to be clear. Maybe just a couple follow-ups on Lawa, Pascal. I mean, where are we at with drilling there? I mean, the potential sizing you guys are touching on. I mean, it could be its own entire structure there. I mean, it's its own entire thing that is. I'll leave it to you guys to discuss the size and potential on that. But where are you at with drilling? When might you see the initial results? Which, of course, that's going to be an impossible answer. But just maybe more on the current update of Lawa.
Like that,
so we are not drilling it yet, and have not started drilling it. So right now, I think there's no shortage of other things to be drilling while we do a lot of good superficial work in Lawas, just to make sure that when we get there, we have a complete model, and just to kind of keep that success rate, and there's other things that can feed the drills. So as far as timing wise, when we'll drill it, that's a Colin question. But I think, where it's at right now is mapped. We have basically from that horseshoe in French Guiana down the river on the other side of the southeast corner, so it's 8 kilometers on the north side. And now that we have actual assay data, preliminary assay data over that, that's also being validated at the lab as well. So beyond structure, you have grade there as well. And I think one of the things about the Lawas is, it is large, kind of tonalitic, intrusive type target, maybe something more similar to Puese. But at the same time, we're also finding quite high grade in certain areas. So it also has the upside of some high grade materials. So we're still kind of reconciling that. But from what we see so far, it fits our model. Not to say it won't have nuances, but yeah. So that's kind of where it's at presently.
I'll give the timing answer though.
Okay.
No, we want to have, there's a little dry season here in kind of March, mid-April timeframe. So I'd say around April is when we're shooting from a logistics, from getting the superficial work done that Pascal has designed, that program finished, and results back from it. That's what we're shooting for. So H1 for sure, but kind of April-ish is when we plan to get the drills there, and the turnaround times for assays hasn't really changed. So once we start drilling, at the scale we are now, we'll start with a small kind of, phase 1 program type thing, 10, 12 holes, and look to release that once we have it all drilled and understood. Yeah.
And I think as far as like us understanding the drilling and superficial work, we now have Da Vinci kind of informally kind of no man's land. So as we move over, we can just kind of leapfrog and hopscotch over the Lawas, and there might be more in there. So I think that's also real exciting. I think it's Chris Taylor who pointed out a really good way of thinking about it is like now we're kind of figuring out where the center of mass is here.
Okay,
and I
sure.
think that center I suspect might end up being perhaps in the center. And so yeah.
It certainly it can move, and up until now or up until fairly recently, it's been upper Antino, and that's it hasn't been that long ago before when we started actually talking about things other than upper Antino. For a while, people thought that was the whole property.
That was it. Yeah,
I think we've definitely done a pretty good job over the last few months, anyway, of showing people that there's a lot more out there, and that it is 200 square kilometers, and a lot of that very little exploration. So, it's growing. It's going to keep growing.
Well, and then I guess, are there, so I mean, the one last question I had here, then one just kind of a couple ending points, but are there boots on the ground? I mean, if you can see where I'm kind of waving are there boots on the ground in between Boise and Da Vinci? Are there boots on the ground kind of to the southeast there of Da Vinci, or is that happening yet? Or are those still, like you say, just your priority list, you're just not there yet?
Yeah, boots on the ground for sure. And I think a part of, where this is really going to start to have some torque is, as we alluded to earlier, we now have the capacity to push forward multiple strategies at once. So yeah, we had quite a bit of work in Da Vinci, both drilling as well as some early superficial work there. But now boots on the ground in Lawa. We'll have boots on the ground upper Antino, Boise, between those two trends. So yeah, I mean, I think in early next year, we're basically going to have like 3 to 4 superficial teams testing different things simultaneously, 4 drills testing different prospects simultaneously. So yeah, I think our footprint.
Lots of news.
Yeah, lots of news. Yeah.
Man, that's exciting. Yeah. Very cool.
A lot of moving parts now.
Yeah. Maybe two very simple questions here, then I'll leave it after that, I think. But where are the rigs now? And then maybe a rundown of how many assays are at the lab or are outstanding or currently.
Well, today, the rigs are mostly at camp, kind of doing a year-end wrap-up. We will shut things down over the holidays and be back at it, in the new year, with all 4 going full tilt.
So where are they going to go then? How's that for a more
So right
question?
now, I mean, it's we still have a rig at upper Antino, kind of indefinitely, seemingly right now. There's lots to still test and grow there. Lower Antino remains, we want to finish out the program we have planned there, Boise as well, and then Da Vinci. So those are going to be the 4 places with the rig. As we wrap up those, everything's a bit result dependent. That's just the nature of exploration. But we'll finish up some of those programs, and then we'll have a rig that's going to float most of the year and go test these further afield, brand new things. We want to take the opportunity to just test stuff that's never been drilled before. That's our job this year, or this year coming.
It's also more fun.
It's also more fun. Yeah. Everybody likes new discoveries. So,
yeah.
And then after that, I mean, over the course of the year, we will get a drill to Parvo for sure. There'll be the work in Lawa. There's a lot of targets, but it's not to say that there isn't a systematic kind of order to things. And we're obviously conscious of which ounces are worth the most to us, and some of that though is a bit dependent on where is this center of mass. And right now there's a lot of this kind of upper Antino, lower Antino, Boise area, so ounces closer to that have more value. But the more we find down around Da Vinci, Lawa, in between the two, it starts to make that quite valuable too. We don't need to put 50,000 meters into every target. We just need to show where those targets are as well to really build value for shareholders, and I think make it a lot more attractive to the guys out there that are watching. So
excellent. And then this is this question almost isn't relevant for a product like this where it's 12 months a year. But how many assays are outstanding currently?
Assays, I'd say there's probably about 1,500 meters outstanding, in that range, like 1,000 to 1,500 meters. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, no, I think that's the end of my list of questions, gents. I mean, anything, I'll leave it to you to just final thoughts. I mean, I think I like that you're kind of emphasizing 2025. Seems silly to call it a year of discovery when 2024 is so clearly a year of discovery as well, but that is kind of ends up being a focus for you next year. Is there kind of a sneak preview or a theatrical trailer, so to speak, of 2025 that you two wanted to share with us before we say goodbye here?
I thought we just did that.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
No, it is that. I mean, like we're obviously looking to continue finding new things, and that's going to be the focus. So, we've, as Pascal said, we've had some success with this official work in a number of areas. So, we've got things lined up to go test, and hopefully, we can show some new discoveries, beyond the ones that we've already put out there, or on top of. So, it's going to be nice to see that grow. At the same time, we don't want to put too many things out all at one time. We want to make sure that people kind of continue to understand and kind of stay connected to the story. And so, we're taking our time and making sure that we're doing the right amount of work on all of these things that we do understand too. So, it's going to be a very exciting year, though. We're pretty excited to get back here and rolling in January.
Yeah. No, excellent. Pascal, final thoughts to you?
Yeah, no, I just kind of say we're kind of locked, loaded, and ready to go. I think the program's very mature now, and going all the way to where we started. I think the people aspect, not just the geos, but drillers we've trained and all the rest of it, everybody's producing and performing extremely well. So we're not really at the, figuring it out stage anymore. Now we're at like everything's built, and we have the inertia to really begin to bring this to scale. And I think that's what people should be thinking about next year. And as you're, having your rum and eggnog, ponder founders, and yeah.
Well, I'll do both those things. So there you go.
Yeah.
No, awesome. Yeah, Colin and Pascal, thanks for your time, gents. And yeah, well, Pascal, I'll make Colin drag you on here sometime in the new year. We can do this again.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Look forward to this.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Matt.
guys.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye.